In my previous video, I ranked every Disney Plus animated movie on a tier list, and I put Treasure Planet in S tier. And in this video, I want to explain why that is, and why Treasure Planet is an underrated Disney masterpiece. So let's get into it. Right off the bat, you get this beautiful star scene, and we immediately get some voiceover from a calming voice, and we see this beautiful merchant ship pass by. And you got this badass shot of a pirate ship flying in after the merchant ship. We then see the captain of the pirate ship, the notorious Nathaniel Flint. And holy shit, the character design is so cool. Just look at him. Look at how cool he looks. He's got like 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got like 6 eyes, dude. That's like awesome, bro. This guy can look at each monitor when he's gaming, dude. That's actually insane. After the pirate ship unleashes fire on the merchant ship, we see a little Jim Hawkins. And we also see that he's actually reading a book. And the book is like projecting the words it's saying into images, which is really cool. Honestly, I would read so much if books, well, actually it'd be less of reading and more of just like a movie at that point, because it would just be like projecting it. But like still though, Captain Flint and his crew raid the ship and break open the chest, and when Flint scoops up the gold in his hands and laughs maniacally, it's one of my favorite animated scenes of all time. It's so badass. You see like the gold, the reflection of the gold in his eyes while he's like you know, it's like, it's really cool. With the spoils in hand, the narrator tells us that Captain Flint and his pirate ship vanished without a trace, and it's rumored that Captain Flint's loot, known as the Treasure of 1,000 Worlds, lies at the furthest reaches of the galaxy on a planet called Treasure Planet. So little Jim stays up and keeps reading the book. The narrator then says,
"There are nights when the winds of the Ethereum, so inviting in their promise of flight and freedom, made one's spirit soar."
And when he says made one's spirit soar, it fast forwards 12 years later and transitions to Jim flying around on a solar surfer. And the transition gives me chills, dude. Just how smooth it is actually nuts. Through this transition and the narrator saying made one's spirit soar and transitioning to Jim like flying, we as the audience, we come to understand that Jim is still fascinated with the world of Treasure Planet, and not only his spirit soars, he is also literally soaring. It's like the best Disney animated transition ever. I know that's like kind of an odd thing to say, but like transitions can be really good, and this is like cream of the crop. Jim is soaring around on his solar surfer, and the montage of him doing tricks and shit with it is like so cool. He does like this cool grind along this industrial pipe. Gives me total like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 vibes, and it's awesome. We also see Jim retract the wings multiple times on his solar surfer to do like certain tricks. Like one time he flies through this industrial grinder type thing, and it's really cool. Through this bit of James flying around, we can see that he has a free spirit and that his spirit really does soar. Unfortunately, Jim's gets snagged by the Popo and gets returned to his mom, who runs the Benbow Inn. Inside of the inn, we see all different kinds of creatures that inhabit this universe that have come to the Benbow Inn to eat. Jim's mom is obviously distraught at her son showing up at the door of the inn with 2 cops, and apparently this isn't the first time Jim has got in trouble with the law. Jim's mom is named Sarah, and I feel bad for her because she has to manage running this entire inn and her son's budding criminal career. Jim is upset that he has no future, and he goes up to the roof to throw rocks in an anger fit. Jim overhears his mom talking to Delbert, the dog-looking creature, about how Jim's father left when he was younger and how much of a toll that took on him. After overhearing his mom and Delbert talk, a ship crashes onto the dock, and Jim goes to investigate. Inside is a pirate who is holding a chest. The pirate, named Billy Bones, tells Jim that a cyborg is after his treasure chest. Billy Bones ain't doing so hot though, considering he literally just crashed his ship into a dock. But Jim takes pity on him and brings him into the inn. But unfortunately, Billy Bones is really not doing too well. He must have not taken his meds this morning. And with his dying moments, Billy Bones unlocks the chest and gives Jim this little sphere-looking thing that was inside of it. And then he leaves us with a chilling warning. Beware the cyborg. And as Billy Bones dies, a pirate ship lands outside the inn and unleashes a barrage of gunfire into the inn. Jim, Delbert, and Sarah all go up to the roof, flee the pirates, and as they are ravaging the house, they jump out onto this little carriage thing pulled by whatever this is. It's pulled by your mom. Lol. So they all flee the burning inn, and I think they recuperate at what seems to be Delbert's science observatory or whatever. So Jim takes out the sphere that Billy Bones gave him, and after fidgeting with it for a moment, it unlocks. And I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of BS that he presses all the right buttons in the right order, then spins it the right way twice, but it's whatever. The sphere projects a map all over the room, and we see that it is actually a map of the galaxy and leads to Treasure Planet. Makes sense why the pirates wanted it. Jim and Delbert are eager to go and embark on a ship to find Treasure Planet, but Jim's mom is obviously reluctant. Eventually, they both convince Sarah to let them go, and our two heroes are off to the spaceport. And the spaceport is on the moon! Look at it! It's so cool. Our moon is so lame compared to this. Like, we haven't even been on the moon because the space landing was faked. But, like, they've been on the moon and they've built this big spaceport. Just look at, like, the futuristic design. Got some Capitol-looking building in what seems to be, like, a town-like area. Presumably full of inns for the spaceships coming and going. And of course, you got a ton of ships docked in the spaceport. The design is really cool and adds to the sci-fi feeling of it. And it's not just the spaceport that's cool. It's all the creatures at the spaceport as well. Like, look at this guy. He's got, like, these tentacles coming out of his head, and he's carrying some sort of goofy-looking instrument. Honestly, it could also be a weapon of some sort. Or both. Be like a war bow or something. I don't know. As Jim and Delbert walk through the spaceport, a bunch of other weird creatures walk by, and eventually they come to the ship that will be taking them to Treasure Planet, and we're introduced to some of the crew. All of the crew are super cool. Like, you got this one, like, fart trumpet looking slug, and you got this one crab eye. Like, I don't, like, what is this? I don't know. It's like some gremlin thing with, like, a stalk eye, like one stalk looking eye. Then we also got Mr. Arrow, which is just a rock. He's actually just, like, a sentient rock. Like, that's not a joke. And he's the second in command, and then we see the captain, which is like this weird cat hybrid thing. After being introduced, Captain takes the map from Jim and then locks up it for safekeeping. The captain then assigns Jim to work with the cook, Mr. Silver. And Mr. Silver is a cyborg. And if you remember, that's not good because Billy Bones was like, bad, cyborg equal bad, no good. The robotic parts of Mr. Silver are also so well animated. They're actually done in 3D, and they did it incredibly well. His arm is multifunctional, and it's got like multiple attachments for cooking. He's got this flamethrower. He got what looks to be an egg grabber, like an attachment just for grabbing eggs, which is kind of odd, but I mean, whatever, you got to do. And then you have like this hand with a bunch of knives and whatnot. And it's really cool to just watch him use all of them to cook. It's super dope. And he's also got this cool cyborg guy that does like targeting and stuff. Mr. Silver also has a little pet called Morph, who is actually just a blob of jelly that can transform into different things. Neither Jim or Silver are very thrilled about working together though. In the kitchen, Jim sort of subtly interrogates Mr. Silver about the knowledge of Billy Bones, but he denies ever being to Montresor or having known Billy Bones. Montresor is also the planet that Jim is from. Mr. Silver sends Jim off, and as he leaves, Silver tells Morph that they need to keep an eye on him so he doesn't peek into things he shouldn't. It's kind of incriminating. Are they trying to hide like a secret recipe for like, Kentucky Fried Chicken or something? You know what I'm saying? So Jim watches the launch of the ship, and it's really cool. The solar sails are beautiful and super cool to watch, and the 3D animation of it, they make it work so well with the 2D characters. A bunch of space creatures similar to sea creatures also soar about the ship as it takes off. I wonder if they're like sea space urchins. So like there's just a massive ball of spike floating through space. After the launch, Mr. Silver puts Jimbo to work by having him scrub the deck. Jim scrubs the deck. Jim gets into a tussle by insulting the scorpion-looking thing named Mr. Scroop. Right before Jimbo gets his throat slit by Mr. Scroop, Silver saves the day by giving Mr. Scroop a slap on the wrist. All the crew goes under the deck, and Mr. Silver goes down and gives them a pep talk. It's revealed that they are all actually pirates and got hired as an upstanding crew to start a mutiny and take over the ship so they themselves can get the loot on Treasure Planet. Meanwhile, Jim scrubs the deck until nightfall, and Silver comes up on deck to check on him. Jim thanks Silver for saving his ass from the scorpion guy, to which Silver responds, "Didn't your pop teach you to choose your fights?" Jim tells Silver that his dad was less of the teaching sort and more of the leaving and never coming back sort. Silver shows a little bit of sympathy for Jim, and this scene is actually really well done. Facial expressions when Silver is talking about Jim's father, you can see that he actually feels for Jim and that he's not just like a heartless bastard. After this little moment, Silver tells Jim that he won't eat, sleep, or scratch his bum unless he says so, and then puts him to work. This is Chinese sweatshop level of work, okay? Like this is rough. And we get a montage of Jim doing all the chores, with Silver teaching him how to do it. During this montage, we get one of the best Disney songs ever called I'm Still Here, and it's sang by the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls, I think. But throughout the montage, we get flashbacks of how neglectful Jim's dad was and how damaging it was for him. But we also see Silver teaching Jim how to do the things around the ship, just like a father would. So you got this contrast between Jim's father and how Silver is warming up to Jim and becoming a father figure to him. This montage is one of the most crucial parts of the movie, and it's amazing. Just seeing Silver be a father figure to Jim is so heartwarming. I actually got chills throughout this entire thing. And the song also just drives it home. And the cherry on top is, after the montage is over, they just both sit in the skiff and just talk about their dreams. It's so cool. So after that, we see that a star goes supernova and starts to toss chunks of star at the ship. And a meteor actually hits Silver and causes him to fall off the ship, but Jim saves him just in time. I will say, though, this shouldn't have happened since we see Silver securing his lifeline just a few moments earlier. Everybody on ship has a lifeline, and they all secure it, so it's wild, though. Captain tells Jim to check these lifelines and make sure they're secure and tight, and Jim does, and all of them are as snug as a bug in a rug. Soon, the star actually turns into a black hole, and this causes Mr. Arrow, the second in command, to fall off the ship, but his lifeline catches him thanks to Jim. But Mr. Scroop cuts his lifeline and causes Mr. Arrow to fall in the black hole. And I gotta give props to Disney for showing a character dying. They don't do that enough. I want more death, damn it. After the crew escapes the black hole, Jim is blamed for the death of Mr. Arrow, since he was responsible for making sure they were all secure. Silver knows it wasn't Jim's fault, though, and he knows that Mr. Scroop killed Mr. Arrow. Ashamed, Jim runs off. Silver goes to console Jim, and he does just that. He tells Jim that he has the makings of greatness, and that when the day comes for him to be great, he hopes that he'll catch some of the light coming off of his sails. That line, this little scene, is just such another good character development scene for both of them and for their father-son relationship. It's just so good. It's so emotionally charged, and you actually feel it. You get chills. You feel both of their emotions. So good. It's so well done. Jim confides in Silver, and they have a heartfelt hug. Silver is worried, though, since he's obviously getting too attached to Jim, and he doesn't want the crew saying he's gone soft, or to have Jim get in the way of his treasure. The next morning, Jim chases Morph down to the kitchen and chases him into a barrel. As Jim hides in the barrel, he sees the whole crew talk about how they want to have a mutiny. He also sees Silver denies having a soft spot for Jim, and says that he was just getting close to him so he could get the treasure. Jim hears all of this and is deeply wounded by Silver's words, because it's kind of like a repeat of his father, basically. Jim gets out of the barrel, and Silver catches him doing so, and he catches on that Jim probably heard the entire thing, and he prepares to kill him. But Jim stabs Silver's leg and books it. Silver then starts the mutiny, and the crew takes control of the ship. So Delbert, the captain, and Jim take the map and book it to the skiffs so they can escape the pirates. But of course, Morph has to be a little dick, and he grabs the map and flies back onto the ship with it before they can leave. Jim chases Morph and eventually grabs the map just before Silver can. Silver pulls out his flintlock arm and aims at Jim to kill him. And he has the shot. He could kill Jim, but you see that he just can't bring himself to kill Jim, and he lowers the gun. And the gang manages to get on the skiff and fly away, but they're shot down before they get very far. They all crash land on the planet, and we see that the captain is badly injured, but at least they have the map, right? Sight's the little pink shit stain acting as the map, because everyone's back on the ship. Jim scouts ahead, and we get introduced to quite possibly the most annoying Disney character ever, Ben, the bioelectric navigator. Ben is just comedic relief, and I mean, I guess he is kind of important to the plot, even if he is just used as a lazy plot device. He just won't shut the fuck up, though, and it's pretty annoying. Ben takes the gang to his hideout. Also, things get a little spicy between the captain and Delbert. A little bit of sexual tension. Silver comes back and finds them at Ben's hideout, and he raises the white flag so he can talk to Jim. But things get heated since Jim feels really betrayed and doesn't want Silver to get the map. Silver says he'll blast them all to Kingdom Come if he doesn't get the map by tomorrow morning. Silver walks away, but he glimpses back one last time at Jim, and you can see how heartbroken he is at how things are turning out. Even more amazing character development here. Even though through all that's happened, he still cares about Jim. Jim and Ben sneak out of the hideout and steal the pirate's skiff and fly back to the ship so they can grab the map. And this part of the movie is kind of lame though, because Morph and Ben save Jim multiple times from Mr. Scroop, who's guarding the ship, because of random BS that they do. It's kind of a lazy way to resolve Jim getting chased by a demon crab, but it's whatever. Jim grabs the map and then he gets back to the hideout, but the pirates have already captured the hideout and have tied up the captain and Delbert. Silver takes the map from Jim. Pirates then take our heroes and take them where the map's leading them. They figure out that the map is less of a map and more of a portal to anywhere in the galaxy, and that Flint used it to teleport around the galaxy, plundering the entire universe and then teleporting away. Honestly, seems kind of OP, but whatever. They can balance that out in the next patch. As they try different locations on the map, doors to places around the universe open, and we can see some of what the universe looks like. Eventually, they get the right one, which is actually the center of the planet they're on. It's really cool to see all the different places in the universe open and close, though, and one of them looks like a cookie planet. Like, there's actually cookies here. There's just cookies everywhere, and I've been to that planet too many times. The planet they're on is actually one huge machine, and the center is just a huge orb of all of Flint's loot, and it looks so cool. I love the idea of the planet actually being a machine. It's just really well done. You can see all these mechanical lasers and stuff that are like holding the treasure together in this orb, and it's really cool. So they find the treasure and go through the portal. It's actually booby trapped, and the entire core of the planet starts to basically explode. Break down and explode. While this is going on, we flash back to Delbert and the captain on the ship, and somehow Captain is magically healed from her wound. Like, she's not like injured or whatever. Like, she doesn't have any of her bandages on, and it's like odd because later on she goes back to being injured. It's kind of weird, dude. Anyway, Delbert gets out of his bind since she has teeny tiny wrists and commandeers the pirate's skiff. Meanwhile, Jim is using the remains of Captain Flint's ship that was crashed down there with the treasure to fly out of the center of the planet. Silver intervenes though and tries to take the ship from Jim. But before Silver can take the ship, a laser trap tears through the side of the ship and sends Jim flying off the edge. Jim catches onto a little ledge, barely hanging on, and Silver is able to hold onto the ship, but he has to choose between Jim or the ship full of treasure. You can see Silver is torn in two, as he must choose between the treasure he sacrificed his entire life for, or Jim, who's like a son to him. I love how they don't make it an easy decision for him, because it's not. Earlier on, he mentions that he is a cyborg because of his pursuit for the treasure, and that he's given up his life to get it. But Jim was like a son to Silver, and that through all their moments of bonding, that it really doesn't make it an easy decision. But eventually, Silver realizes that Jim was more important to him than the treasure of 1,000 worlds, and he saves him. After saving him, the two book it out of the exploding core of the planet, out of the portal, and Delbert picks up Silver and Jim in the skiff, and they flee the planet before it explodes. But unfortunately, a chunk of shrapnel tears off one of the skiff's thrusters, and they won't be able to make it out of the explosion radius of the planet. So Jim tells them to turn around towards the portal, so they can teleport away. But first, the portal's destination needs to be changed. So Jim actually just makes a solar surfer out of the ship's shrapnel, and he does the sickest thing ever. He flies by the map, he selects Montressor, and the ship and him fly through the portal just as the world explodes. So cool, dude. On the ship, Silver and Jim make up after all that, since, you know, their relationship has been, how do I put it? Tumultuous. Yeah, that's a word. I'm sure that's a word. Since Silver is, you know, a pirate and took over the ship and by proxy is a wanted criminal, he wants to take the longboat on the skiff and fly off into the stars looking for another adventure. Silver asks Jimbo to come along, just the two of us with no ties to anyone, as he puts it. And that honestly sounds amazing. I would have loved to see a movie about just Jim and Silver and all of their adventures and see their bond grow stronger and stronger throughout all the adventures they have. And they could have done it. I mean, this universe is so well built. I would have totally watched it. Jim turns it down though, since he wants to be there for his mom and that he wants to chart his own course in life. Silver just tells Jim that he'll rattle the stars, and they have a teary-eyed hug, and it's just so heartfelt. It's the dialogue and moment between them here is just, it just hits your heart right in the feels. It's so good. And then Silver takes off in the skiff and soars off into the stars, but not before tossing a handful of treasure to Jim. Jim returns home and rebuilds the Bembo Inn with the treasure, and the captain and Delbert get married and have little mutant demon children. And the movie ends with Jim looking up into the sky and seeing a cloud of silver in the sky winking back at him. And it's the absolutely most perfect ending. So like I said, this movie is phenomenal. The world building throughout is perfectly done. It doesn't like information dump on you, but instead it weaves it into the story. Kind of like at the beginning when the narrator compares the pirate ship to a Kandarian Zapwing overtaking its prey. We as the viewers don't even know like what a Kandarian Zapwing is, but we get some sense of it because it compares it to something we do understand, the pirate ship. And that's great world building. And can I just say that the ships are done so well in this movie? Look at these two ships side by side. They both feel so futuristic and sci-fi and you can tell which one's which just by looking at it. Pirate ship not only has a flag, but its sails are sharp and red, as opposed to the square and gold sails of the merchant ship. It also flies crookedly through the sky, as opposed to the smooth sailing of the merchant ship. Pretty cool contrast. And the main ship that they take to Treasure Planet is really cool too. I love the idea of the solar sails being like powered up. That's really cool. And they also have this artificial gravity field that you have to activate so you don't just like float off the ship, and it's really cool. And I love the buildings and architecture too, especially at the spaceport. You have this huge kind of main hub area or capital looking building. You also have all these docks like jutting off of the side of the spaceport, so all the numerous amounts of ships can land. And just looking at the picture, it's so cool. And the Bembo Inn is really cool too. It's got like a little dock for ships to board at, and then a little garden in the back for like your cereal and stuff. But one of the coolest parts is that the Bembo Inn actually has like these blinds that you can change to change the scenery basically outside of the window. It's really cool, and you can see Sarah using it. And all the devices and machinery and vehicles like Jim's Solar Surfer are so cool, so unique, and they add to the world so much. But what also adds to the world a lot is all the different creatures, all these different races of beings, and a lot of them are really cool. Like Mr. Scroop, he's like this scorpion creature, and Mr. Arrow, he's like this rock being kind of guy, and then you have, of course, that demon gremlin and fart slug. They're all just so cool and unique, and I want to know like all about them. I want to know about the rest of the world too, because they have this lore about Captain Flint being the most dreaded pirate ever and him plundering the universe. And you also have Billy Bones and his backstory and run-in with Silver and whatnot, and just a bunch of other stories that I want to know about. All of these combined, like the creatures, the design of stuff, and the architecture, really just pulls you into the world. You can actually really tell that the people who made this movie cared about crafting a good world, and they really did. The characters are not just cookie cutter lame, but some of the most interesting / unique in Disney's history. They craft these lovable characters, with the exception of Ben, that are multifaceted and each with their own drive and purpose. But even though they have their own goals, such as Silver's, which is to roam the galaxy, they still intertwine the stories perfectly. At the end of the movie, Silver leaves to roam the galaxy because that is still his dream. But he's still like a father to Jim. Just because he leaves at the end, and this time on better terms than Jim's dad, doesn't discredit their relationship. And I feel like if they had it any other way, it would just feel off, because that's not who Silver is. And I'm sure Silver will visit Jimbo from time to time, of course. And how they craft Jim and Silver's relationship throughout the movie is done so well. It's not done in one burst. It's sprinkled throughout with all these scenes and bonding montages of Jim and Silver slowly growing closer together. And you also have a lot of the relationship and story arc building is done through facial expressions and glances. Like when Silver looks back at Jimbo and he has a face of regret and hurt after they just argue or whatever. And also when he can't bring himself to shoot Jim when he has the chance. The facial expressions play a huge part in Jim and Silver's development as characters. In the final scene where Silver tells Jim that he's gonna rattle the stars, it gives me chills, dude. And at the very end, when Jim looks up into the stars and sees Silver looking right back at him, it's so well done. And since it's done like this, since it's sprinkled throughout, it feels real. It feels real. And it feels like it develops throughout the movie. One of the most crucial bonding moments was when Silver puts Jim to work, and he's kind of like training Jim on the work. Silver has the look of a proud father whenever Jim does good work And you can actually see Silver actually cares about Jim a lot, just like a father would his son. And I feel like Jim and Silver's story is one that a lot of people could resonate with, because unfortunately not having a father figure is commonplace. This movie does not shy away from that topic, and I commend Disney for that. You do get this side story with Delbert and the captain, and it's fine for what it is, since it's like a side story arc, but it doesn't really matter though, since the main focus is on Jim and Silver. I will say though, that there are parts of the story that were kind of lackluster. Ben and Morph were just convenient plot devices that they pull out whenever they felt like it. Ben is also just fucking annoying. He's like that kid in school that thinks loud equals funny and has no concept of personal space. Even in spite of these flaws, the story between Jim and Silver is so well crafted that it overshadows these by miles. The flaws that this movie has just pales in comparison at how good the rest of the movie is. I could say more about the story and the world building, but this video is as long as it is, so I'll talk about the animation. The animation is really unique. Disney took a really bold move with this movie, animation-wise. They decided to blend 3D with 2D, and they pulled it off so well. And it adds to the world so much more than if it was just 2D. Silver's arm is all 3D. And since it is, you can see like the gears and the intricacies of it. You wouldn't have that if it was 2D animated. You couldn't get that real look of it. Same with like the ships and the towns and stuff. They're 3D modeled. Most of them are 3D modeled. And it works, they just make it work so well with the 2D models. It doesn't seem out of place. It seems natural. It's like, you don't look at it and you're like, oh, that's weird. Why is that 3D animated? No. You never have that throughout any of the movie. It all flows so well together. And the 2D animation by itself is so well done too. Especially, I know this is funny to say, but the hair, they really animate the hair very well in this movie, especially near the beginning when Jim is flying on his solar surfer. That scene is animated really well, and especially the one that I talked about earlier with Captain Flint raiding the ship and him scooping up the crystals in his hand, and just his look of fanaticism as the gold reflects onto his sinister gaze. It's so good. And although Morph is used as a convenient plot device, his animation is really well done. It flows so well. It's like jelly on your eyes. And I mean, it makes sense. He is just jelly. And I could go on and talk for another like hour about why this movie is one of Disney's best, but I won't, because this video is getting pretty long. So yeah, Treasure Planet is definitely one of Disney's best, and I recommend that you go check it out and give it a watch if you haven't already. Or even if you have, just go watch it again, because it's amazing. So yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching till the end, and you can be expecting more animated movie reviews soon. Okay, bye.